The first person to face trial for their part in the January 6 riot has been sentenced to just over 7 years in prison. Guy Reffitt is a member of the far-right militia known as the Texas 3 Percenters. The 49-year-old was found guilty on 5 counts, including bringing a handgun into the Capitol and obstructing Congress's certification of Biden's Electoral College win. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us now to talk about this. Scott, we spoke earlier and you had noted that Reffitt was sentenced to just over, 7 years in prison for his part in this, but prosecutors were asking for more than twice that. What kind of benchmark does this case serve now for others moving forward?
We were wondering, Errol, if this would be a canary in the coal mine case, an indication of what happens to a defendant facing similar accusations who goes to trial and is convicted. And we walked away uncertain. This was both a victory and a defeat for the U.S. Justice Department. They secured the longest prison sentence so far in any Capitol riot case, but they secured a sentence that was less than half of what they were seeking. They wanted 15 years. They got 7 years and 3 months. The big reason, they sought to get what they called a terrorism enhancement, an enhanced sentence arguing what Reffitt did on the front lines, carrying a gun, a megaphone, and tactical gear confronting police, qualified as a form of domestic terror. The judge didn't agree, didn't think the feds made their case on that, but agreed that it was a significant case and worthy of 7 years and 3 months. That wasn't so much a surprise. What was a surprise was what Reffitt's daughters said. One of his daughters, Peyton, was in the courtroom today asking for leniency for her father. Then she spoke outside the court. Listen to what she had to say.
I think it really paints a bigger picture. To mark my dad as this horrible person, and then having him prosecuted like this when somebody is maybe even able to get elected again doesn't seem right to me.
Trump deserves life in prison if my father's in prison for this long.
Stunning
Trump deserves
statement
life
there.
in prison if my father deserves this much prison time. Yeah, Errol, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we have never heard that from any January 6th defendant or family member, either in court or outside of court at one of these hearings.
Yeah, no, Scott, it's important that you make that point, and it really speaks to how some of these relatives may feel in ways that they haven't previously said so publicly. I want to ask you about former Trump advisor Steve Bannon. He was convicted of contempt of Congress, and he is apparently now trying to delay serving any sort of sentence. What's the basis of his appeal?
Well, that's a continuation of his process throughout this criminal case. He tried to delay his trial. He failed. He was convicted in a matter of hours by a D.C. jury. Now he seeks to delay the sentencing. Steve Bannon is trying to extend the clock. And we see that in a lot of criminal cases where the defendant is not being held in pretrial detention. There's no cost to trying to draw out the process. There's no indication he'll succeed in this. The judge has left open the possibility of future appeals being filed in the case. But Steve Bannon is facing a mandatory minimum in this contempt of Congress case. 2 convictions on 2 charges of contempt of Congress, each carrying a 30-day mandatory minimum and a 1-year maximum. So Steve Bannon is facing the likelihood, if not the prospect, of prison time. So no surprise, Errol, he's trying to draw out the clock.
And speaking of Trump associates, the Washington Post obtained a recording of a conversation between Florida Representative Matt Gaetz and Trump consultant Roger Stone. He, of course, was convicted and then pardoned by former President Trump. What exactly did they discuss, and could it lead to any additional legal proceedings or impact existing ones?
Well, according to that reporting, Errol, there was a prediction by Florida Congressman Gaetz about a looming pardon for Roger Stone in advance of his pardon from former President Trump. All of this adds context to the current set of prosecutions, where you have 850 federal defendants so far in the U.S. Capitol riot. There are likely hundreds more to come. And you have former President Trump openly talking about the prospect of pardons for January 6 defendants if he were to retake office. These reports from the Washington Post about the hot mic audio from Congressman Gaetz really reinforces the importance of what the former president's saying, that if he were to retake office, there could be pardons looming. That may be fanciful talk, that may seem preposterous to some people, but let me tell you who takes it seriously. Some number of January 6 defendants who are accused of predicting future pardons as they face the prospect of prosecutions. It's not an irrelevant, trivial thing in court. even if that talk seems fanciful now.
Let me quickly ask you about burn pits, another important issue being discussed in the nation's capital. I know you spoke earlier today with veterans and activists who are pushing for a bill to help those impacted by exposure to all that toxic air. Let's play some of that, and I'll chat with you on the other side.
This is the canary in the coal mine for the lowest bar. This government should be soaring to heights, not playing limbo and trying to get underneath the bars that don't mean anything.
My message to the Senate is we fought for you, and now it's your time to fight for us. Pass the PACT Act now and stop playing games with our lives, because we're out here and we are dying.
Scott, what's the holdup?
It's a procedural issue, according to senators. And in the Senate, procedural issues are not trivial. That's what the Senate does. It ensures proper procedure. But even those out there protesting are optimistic this bill is going to pass, could impact millions of veterans, they say, exposed to some form of toxic chemicals, not just burn pits. Likely a vote midweek. It's just a political loser. It is political kryptonite for anybody standing in the way of this at this moment. And I think everybody in the U.S. Senate recognizes that.
Yeah, and we saw comedian Jon Stewart lending his voice. We know he's very passionate about this as well, doing what he can to push it across the finish line. Scott MacFarlane, thank you very much.